Africa has perhaps hundreds of millions of people with this identity right now of being from the people of Israel.
Are Igbo people really one of the lost tribes of Israel? Can they have possibly descended from Gad, one of the sons of Jacob?
A Jewish court has ruled that they are Israelites.
Normally, I would dismiss such a theory out of hand, but people keep referring to it, so I looked into it. Surprisingly, I found numerous reports on this particular theory. There seems to be a lot of evidence that the Igbos are Israelites, right? But there's more substantial evidence showing that the Igbos can't possibly be the descendants of the Jacob from the Bible. I know this is an unpopular opinion, but stay with me and let's look at the facts together. In this video, we will look at the origins of the Igbo-Israelite theory, the rituals and traditions of Ndi Igbo that bear striking similarities to Judaism, and the evidence used by proponents to connect the Igbos to ancient Israel. And finally, we'll look at four of what I consider the irrefutable proof that the Igbo people cannot possibly be descendants of Israel, actually based on current archaeological reports, which I'll present. If one of them came from the other, it would be the Jews who would have migrated from the more ancient Igbo land and not the other way around. After watching the video, please leave a comment. I'm curious to know where you stand. The Igbo are one of Nigeria's largest ethnic groups, concentrated across what is today southeastern Nigeria. They have a complex society, decentralized in many parts, with vibrant traditions of art, religion, markets, craftsmanship, and community governance. But beyond their cultural vibrancy, there is a long-debated and fascinating claim that the Igbos are descendants of one of the lost tribes of Israel. Who are these lost tribes of Israel? In the Bible, the nation of Israel was made up of 12 tribes, who were descendants of the sons of Jacob. After the Assyrian conquest of the northern kingdom of Israel in 722 BC, this date will be important later. 10 of the 12 tribes were said to have been exiled and eventually lost to history. These are the ones called the lost tribes of Israel. Over the centuries, scholars, explorers, and religious groups have speculated about where these tribes went. Some theories point to the Middle East, some to Asia, and others to Africa. Supporters of the Igbo-Israel connection, pointing to biblical prophecy about Israel's tribes being scattered to distant lands, argue that Africa, with its deep ancient trade links to Israel and Egypt, was a natural destination. To understand this Igbo-Israelite theory, it's important to clarify a common misconception. The term Israelite historically refers to the 12 tribes descended from Jacob, subsequently named Israel. Over time, Jews came to refer to the tribe of Judah and later to the broader religious community practicing Judaism. Although the term Israelites and Jews are used interchangeably in present times, we should note that even if the Igbos are indeed descendants of the lost tribes, it would mean they are Israelites, but not necessarily Jews in the modern religious sense. This is because under traditional Jewish law, Jews are only those who were born to a Jewish mother or have formally converted to Judaism. This distinction is crucial when discussing this theory. The popular version of the Igbo-Israelite origin narrative claims descent from the tribe of Gad. That is Gad, the seventh son of Jacob, born to him by his handmaid, Zilpah. Gad had 3 sons, Eri, Arodi, and Areli, as mentioned in the book of Genesis. Following the exile of the 10 tribes after the Assyrian conquest, the descendants of Gad were supposed to have wandered into Africa and, after several stops, settled in present-day southeastern Nigeria. Those sons, Eri, Arodi, and Areli, fathered clans, established kingdoms, and founded towns, including Owerri, Umuleri, Aruchukwu, and Aguleri, towns that are still in existence today. The idea that the Igbo people may be connected to ancient Israel can be traced back to the 18th century. European explorers and missionaries arriving in West Africa in the 18th and 19th centuries were struck by certain Igbo customs that resembled those of the Old Testament Hebrews. One of the first literary reports about these similarities was written by the 18th century Igbo freed slave, Olaudah Equiano, in a 1789 memoir titled The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiano, or Gustavus Vassa. the African, Equiano wrote, "We practiced circumcision like the Jews and made offerings and feasts on that occasion in the same manner as they did. Like them also, our children were named on some event, some circumstance, or fancied foreboding at the time of birth. We had many purifications and washings, indeed, almost as many, and used on the same occasions, if my recollections did not fail me, as the Jews." Later, scholars and religious leaders, both Jewish and Christian, began to document these connections more systematically. Some of the early literary descriptions of Igbo-Jews and other African Jews were written from the background of the evangelical movement in the British Empire. George Thomas Basden, an Anglican missionary, in his 1921 book, Among the Igbos of Nigeria, suggested that the term Igbo, which at some point was spelled by Europeans as Heebo, may have evolved from the word Hebrew. He also noted over 50 Igbo customs similar to Jewish law. In the 20th century, amidst more evangelizing and documentation, the theory gained global attention, with some Igbo people embracing the idea. But more Igbos would come to strongly identify with the Jewish experience during and after the Nigerian Civil War, when over 1 million Igbos lost their lives in the struggle for Biafran independence. They saw parallels between their suffering and that of the Jews during the Holocaust, both as victims of genocide and as a people defending a homeland surrounded by hostile neighbors. This period marked the beginning of a deeper Igbo identification with Judaism and Israel. One of the strongest arguments for the Igbo-Israel origin theory comes from Igbo traditions that mirror biblical practices. The Igbo practice of reverence for a single supreme god, Chukwu, is said to be evidence of continuity with the monotheism of ancient Israel. Before European Christian missionaries showed up, the Igbo relied on Odinani, the code of life, handed down from Chukwu, the creator. Some of their customs included circumcising their sons, offering burnt sacrifices, and undergoing various purification rituals. Take circumcision, for example. Like the Israelites, the Igbo circumcise male children on the 8th day after birth. The practice of circumcision is not uncommon in African traditions, but what sets the Igbo apart is performing it on the 8th day, which very few other cultures do. Many Igbo communities traditionally avoided eating certain unclean animals, echoing the dietary restrictions in Leviticus. The Igbo practice of cleansing after childbirth, illness, or death resembles the Hebrew rite of sitting Shiva and other purification rites. The Igbo New Yam Festival, celebrating harvest and renewal, has been compared to Jewish festivals marking seasons and covenant renewal. Also, traditional Igbo names often reference Chi or Chukwu, similar to the Hebrew practice of embedding divine references in names. These parallels have led many to suggest that Igbo culture preserves ancient Israelite traditions passed down over centuries. Some oral traditions within Igbo land speak of ancestors who migrated from the east across the Nile into their present homeland. This matches broader African migration patterns and is said to support the claim of Middle Eastern origins. Therefore, proponents of the Igbo-Israelite theory argue that these cultural echoes are more than coincidence. One of the most powerful arguments against the Igbo-Israel connection is the sheer antiquity of Igbo land, which in many places goes far back before Israel's timeline. This argument is supported by a combination of oral traditions, archaeological and linguistic evidence, which show that the Igbo people had emerged as a distinct group in their present homeland more than 6,000 years ago. Consider Lejja in Enugu State. Archaeological dating shows iron smelting at Lejja as far back as 4,000 years ago, making it one of the oldest iron smelting sites in Africa. One of the Lejja sites contains more than 800 large slag blocks, some weighing over 30 to 50 kilograms, demonstrating large-scale metallurgy and dated to circa 2000 BC. That means the Igbo people were smelting iron long before the period of Jacob, who is supposed to have lived from approximately 1836 BC to 1689 BC. In addition, Other sites in Nsukka, such as Opi, show evidence of ironworking using natural draft furnaces around 700 BC. This is consistent with a long, continuous indigenous tradition of metallurgy from the time of Lejja. If Igbo land had been taken over by Israelites or any other people around 722 BC, that is, following the exile of the lost tribe, we would have seen archaeological breaks and the introduction of a foreign material culture at some point. But instead, we see continuity of local development. The Stone Age to Iron Age progression seen all over Igbo land in the archaeological record of sites such as Ugwuele to Afikpo, Nsukka, and Igbo-Ukwu sites shows the Igbo people, specifically, had continuous occupation of that region. All artifacts excavated are similar in style and uniquely Igbo.
When it comes to linguistics, the Igbo language is part of the Kwa subgroup of the Niger-Congo language family, one of the oldest language groups in Africa. Linguists using glottochronology estimate that Igbo separated from its proto-language around 6000 BC. No significant Igbo linguistic enclaves exist outside the Igbo area, which suggests a long uninterrupted residence in southeastern Nigeria. This again strengthens the idea that the Igbo language, and by extension the people, developed in place, rather than having migrated from a distant origin in the 8th century BC. Those who support the Israelite origin theory often point to cultural practices that echo Hebrew customs: circumcision, purification rituals, dietary taboos, names referencing God, and festival similarities. But many other African and non-African cultures independently evolve similar practices. For example, you find the practice of circumcision on the 8th day among some Kenyan and South African communities, and in a few other places in the Middle East and beyond. Festivals and rituals revolving around harvest period and other seasons often arise organically in agrarian societies everywhere. Furthermore, these practices do not map neatly or consistently across all Igbo groups. There is no continuity of Hebrew ritual law, scriptural texts, or unbroken liturgical tradition from Israel to Igbo land. When it comes to similarity in names to the ones in the Bible, this is not unique to the Igbos. There's a place called Oki-Eri in Ogun State. As one writer rightfully said, this is just as saying that the people of Edo State are the Edomites, the Hihita in Anambra State are the Hittites, or the people of Peru are the Perizzites. These examples abound, but they are not convincing. Meanwhile, some have suggested that similarities might have been due to transference of customs through trade. Historiographical data shows that Portuguese and Moroccan Jews traded in the West African region as far back as the time of the Mali Empire. It is feasible that certain customs, objects, or ideas traveled via trade routes without wholesale migration of people. In fairness to the Igbo-Israel origin proponents, they are not the only group claiming to be Israelites. Communities in Ethiopia, Japan, Afghanistan, India, and people among the Maori and Native Americans have embraced theories that they descend from lost Jews. And all these communities have been lobbying to be recognized by Israel. In modern times, proponents have turned to DNA testing. In 2017, the Jewish Voice, an organization that helps communities validate the legitimacy of their Jewish claims, tested 124 Igbo men from a group who self-identified as having Jewish heritage. The result shows no detectable link between the Igbo DNA and established Jewish or Israelite genetic markers. You can find the link to the report in the description. Unlike the Igbo, the Lemba people of South Africa and Zimbabwe have been formally accepted by Israel, as genetic testing on them showed a significant Semitic origin, with the result validating them as Jews on the basis of their ancestry. As stated at the end of the report from the Jewish Voice, and I quote, "Our purpose for providing this DNA testing for the redeemed Israel community of Nigeria was to assist them in their pursuit of truth concerning their historical lineage and identity. They are a remarkable group of people, but the DNA test results did not support their claim to be descendants of the ancient people of Israel." End quote. Nothing can be clearer than that. As we have seen, every major pillar of the Israelite origin theory collapses under scrutiny.
Archaeology shows Igbo civilization predates the Israelite period. Genetic tests prove negative, and cultural parallels are definitely not proof of relation. All these strongly support the conclusion that the Igbo are not descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. The true history of the Igbo lies in the deep, rich tapestry of their homeland. It is time to let go of myth and embrace the real heritage of Ndi Igbo, the ancient ones. Check out this video on the Stone Age site discovered in Igbo land. Thanks for watching.